like to tell you a story. One that's been handed down from generation to generation, since the times of the great King Arthur and the Round Table. It's the story of the birth of Taliesin the Bard. Some say he was the greatest of all bards. I don't know about that. But what I do know is he served in the courts of no less than 3 kings. Some say this tale is the stuff of myth and legend. I know very different. Oh, he existed. He was real. It all began in Penllyn, where there lived a man of gentle lineage. His name was Tegid Vul, and his dwelling was on the shores of Lake Tegid. Some say he was a giant, others not so. I suppose that's all been lost to history now. His wife was called Ceridwen. She was well versed in the magical arts. And they had a son named Morvan ap Tegid, and also a daughter. The fairest maiden in the world was she. And they had a brother, the most ill-favoured man in the world, a Vagdhi. Now, a Vagdhi became bitter and twisted, but his mother Ceridwen loved him with all her heart, and she couldn't bear to think that he would be disadvantaged in any way, but feared that unless he had some other merits, such as great knowledge or the ability to see into the future, that he would not be accepted by men of noble birth. But there was no magic that she could think of that could help. So she turned to the books of Herilt, where she found the most complex potion that made the drinker both wise and full of knowledge. Knowledge of the past, present, and most importantly, the future. However, to make this potion, she would need to boil the cauldron of inspiration for a year and a day, until 3 blessed drops were obtained of the grace of inspiration. These 3 drops would contain all the potency and magic, and the remainder would be pure poison. It required Ceridwen to collect herbs and plants all around the kingdom, at different times of the year, times of the day, times of the night, by full moon, half moon, hunter's moon, waxing and waning moons. So it became clear to her that she would not be able to attend to the cauldron by herself for the whole year and a day. So she made the servant boy Gwionbach stir the cauldron, and a blind man named Murda tend to the fire beneath it. And she charged them that they must keep it boiling for a year and a day. And so they both dutifully tended to that cauldron all those long months. But one day, towards the end of the year, as Ceridwen was preparing plants and making certain incantations, it chanced that the cauldron started to bubble and hiss, more so than before. And in a flash, 3 drops of that charmed liquor flew out of the cauldron like 3 bright rays of light, and fell sharply upon the finger of Gwionbach, the servant boy, where the heat was instantly searing. Without a thought, he put his finger straight into his mouth to soothe the pain. In that instant, everything changed. The moment he put those drops into his mouth, he became wise. He knew things nobody had ever known, and foresaw things that wasn't yet to come. He knew in that fateful instant that his chief care was to be to guard against the anger of Ceridwen, for so vast was her skill, and in very great fear he fled. Moments later, the cauldron burst into two, because the liquor within, barring the 3 charmed drops, was poisonous. When Ceridwen arrived back and found that the toil of the whole last year was lost, she seized a billet of wood and struck the blind Morda over the head. Over and over she yelled at him, screaming her anger at him. But Morda fought back and claimed his innocence. "Your loss was not because of me," he said. And Ceridwen knew that was true. And so it was towards Gwion Bach that her hatred and anger was redirected. And she went after him running. And he saw her, and in an instant he understood his newfound powers, and transformed himself into a hare, and fled, his back legs pushing hard against the earth, feeling his claws gripping it tight. But she was quick and well versed in the arts of shape-shifting, and changed herself into the form of a greyhound, and she ran after him with the speed that felt like the wind itself was changing direction. Just as he felt her teeth close on his tail, he turned and ran towards the river and leapt. As he felt the water hit his paws, he became a fish and beat his tail with all the might he could muster. Seconds later, the greyhound plunged into the river, and without hesitation of speed, she shifted into the form of an otter and pursued him downstream. In what seemed to Gwion like only a few seconds, Ceridwen was close on his tail, and he had no option but to leap high into the air. He felt his fins dry and expand as he pushed the air down and rose higher and higher, shifting into the form of a wren. But he was closely pursued by Ceridwen as a hawk, who gave him no rest in the sky. And just as she was about to stoop on him, and he was in fear of death, he saw a heap of wheat on the floor in an open barn, and he dropped down amongst the wheat, turning himself into one of the grains. As he lay there on the barn floor, hidden in the grain, he became aware of a high-crested black hen. It was Ceridwen. She was in the barn and scratching at the wheat with her feet, until finally she found him out. 1 grain in a million. And she swallowed him, before finally transforming herself back into human form. And as the story goes, she bore him 9 long months, every day saying that when he was born she would kill him. But finally, when that day came for her to deliver him, she could not bring herself to do it, for reason of his great beauty. So she put him in a leather bag and passed him out to sea. That was the 29th day of April. That time, further along the coast, there was the weir of Gwyddno, on the strand between Divi and Aberystwyth, near the King Gwyddno's own castle. And in those days, Gwyddno had only one son, named Elfyn, the most hapless of youths, and the most needy. And every year in May Eve, by the value of £100 was taken from that weir. And the advice of the council and his father granted Elfyn the drawing of the weir that year, to see if he had good luck that would befall him, and to give him something to start himself off in the world. But the next day, when Elfyn went to look in the weir, there was nothing there. And he turned back and he saw a fallen pole and a leather bag. And he opened it, and inside he saw that there was a boy, the most beautiful and radiant boy. "He's called Taliesin," said Elfyn, renaming the child born of Ceridwen. And he lifted the boy up in his arms and placed him gently on the horse behind him. and he carried him softly back to the castle, where he was raised, and where Taliesin began his life as the bard. So why tell you this story now, you may ask? A story so close to my heart. In this time when there is so much uncertainty, and so much is doubted, it's important to remember that there's still a little bit of magic in the soul of each and every one of us. A magic as old as the hills or as deep as the deepest of lakes. Oh, I know there'll be those among you who'll think that this is a mere retelling of a myth. But that misses the very fabric of the message. One that I've been retelling for over 1,000 years. Look closely, my friend. There's still a little room for a bit more magic.